Welcome to Motivation Monday today, June 21st. And we'll just kind of get things going here. Yeah. And kind of our agenda here. We got like our tip of the week, some sales shout outs, and then we'll be talking about storytelling, how to use a story to increase your sales. Okay. So our quote for today, keeping with our storytelling theme, storytelling is the oldest form of education. Let's see. For our tip of the week, today is the first day to start the AHCP process for those who are looking to become certified in Medicare. Okay. Now, unless you're, if you want to just like dip your toe in Medicare, I would just go over to United Healthcare and look at their process. They don't require the AHCP or any of the cost. It's just that all you would be able to sell are the United Healthcare products, and there's no, you can't transfer that certification to any of the other companies. But those who are, full bore Medicare, got to get the AHCP done. That's that first step in getting ready for open enrollment. The annual AEP opening up on October 15th. So I know that I'll be doing mine today. Let's see here. All right, some sales shout outs. When we looked at the short term, a little combination there of Golden Rule from United Healthcare and National General's short term. Our big sales leaders in there. I always look at this as kind of the show me the money. The big selling ones are up here on top. That was National General and Golden Rule for short term. And those who are doing the selling were Blake, Katia, and William. Okay, so they were leading the way in that, which, like I said, was a combination of National General and Golden Rule. Limited Medical. Somehow it seems, we always see these same names up here. We got, Blake leading in Limited Med, followed by Sean. Then accident. Well, to me, it's no surprise that whoever's selling the most short term is also selling the most accident. But we did have some others, that kind of came in behind Blake, selling the most of the accident plans, because that kind of just goes, in that package when you're selling the short term plan. So, so we had Blake, Andrew, and Cyrus selling the most there. And then in Medicare, we were looking at Tamala. She was selling most of the Medicare supplement plans, Medigap. And Heather kind of led the way in selling the Medicare Advantage plans. So those are the shout outs there. Well done. Keep up those sales. And for today's little mini topic, like I said, we're going to talk about storytelling and how to get that into your sales process, because stories create, get that conversation going. It makes a little more powerful and meaningful experience to the buyer. And they're kind of, like they say here, the currency of human contact, right? We're getting in there and we're trying to sell something, but we want it to connect, right? I mean, that you got the logic that shows why, but we don't have that emotional connection in there. And that's where the storytelling comes in, because it helps create that emotional connection. So let's kind of start. I mean, your story, you got to have lots of them. You can't just have a single story and think that that's going to work. Because here's what you need to know. You need to know, what is that buyer's pain points? Where are they, needing something? it's kind of the simple fact of the matter is you can't use storytelling effectively until you know who you're speaking with, because the most impactful stories are going to resonate differently with different people. So if you're going to incorporate narrative into your sales presentations, you need that buyer persona to help you understand your audience and what they're struggling with. And if you have, existing buyer personas, the key elements is to familiarize yourself with the whole process. So that's what we're talking about here, this process of, where's the pain points? What kind of language are they using, because you want to mimic that same language. How do they see themselves, right? Are they the provider? Are they, the benefactor? I mean, just where are they in that picture? And then what's their role in the decision-making process? So kind of once we have that, we can start to construct our story. I mean, because it's not that you tailor a story to each sales, you just need to have several different stories. And I'm going to give you some examples and how to use them. But you can't, what I'm saying is that this construction of a story that's kind of custom tailored to their needs. And to do that, you need to understand a few underlying principles of storytelling. Okay? You got to have a character. In sales, your character is generally going to be the customer. And then depending on the specific type of story that you decide to tell, that character can be an actual customer that you've had, something that's happened, or it can just be that, more generic, I'd call that the kind of amalgamation of all the common customer traits, right? But that's going to be your character. And in any case, the goal of defining your character is to create this compelling story. And in order to buy into your narrative, the prospective customer needs to be able to see the elements of themselves in the story, and this main character. And that's why I'm saying in order for them to connect, they need to be able to see themselves in there. So that's important. That's why I'm saying that you don't create a story on the fly, but you have several different stories that you can tell that would fit the situation. Then you got to have the context. Now, context provides the framework for the story. And so there's got to have, some internal and external context that you have to consider. And internal, we're referring to the setting of the story. You've identified your main character, and now the internal context is using this, is being deployed here to explain the story's background and setting, as well as, the atmosphere, the mood, the characteristics. Is your character setting in an office? Are they on the road traveling? Are they in the boss's office being reprimanded? I mean, for most of ours, we're going to be, typically the setting is going to be over the phone, right? Because that's the way we mostly do business. And and if you're doing Medicare, a lot of that is still done face to face, using the video connections. So, I mean, we can just be there, okay? And the internal content answers these kinds of questions. Now, external, on the other hand, is how the story is received. You don't have a whole lot of control over that, but traditional storytellers need to consider such factors as the audience that's receiving the story and the medium through which it's being conveyed. So since using stories in the context of a sales presentation means that the audience would be your sales prospect and the presentation is your medium. So you don't need to spend a whole lot of time exactly brainstorming, these factors for the content. Now, the heart of every story is conflict. Just think about every great book you've read, every great movie that you've seen. You see that it's conflict that captures our attention and drives the plot forward. Okay. So even in the context of a sales presentation, your story is going to fall flat if there isn't some sort of conflict in there. So your main character must overcome something, you know. And for your prospective customer to get invested in this story, the character must face some kind of relatable risk and something a tangible potential loss to help them see themselves in the story. So the creation pulls the characters, the context, the conflict all into one comprehensive narrative. Have you ever listened to someone tell a long-winded story that seemingly never gets to the point, or one that rushes the narrative in such a way that the impact of the supposed content is lost? Right? So these are the failures of creation. If you commit them, into your sales presentation, you've wasted a lot of time that you went through, building this story. If you don't deliver it, you can't just rush through it or get too long-winded. I mean, we want a simple story to convey the principles of what we're trying to sell. I'm sure that I'm sure there's been entire books written on this. So just kind of keep with it here. Okay, so now that you've got the elements of the story and some basic good story construction, we'll go back to those pain points that we identified when we were working with the buyer, and try to match them with success stories from past customers involved with a similar problem. Okay. So we put these elements together, and they're gonna here's one of my stories that I like to use, and I'll give it to you. Selling a lot of short-term. I mean, let's go to the go-to product here. A short-term plan, an accident plan, and a critical illness plan, right? You put those three together, and that's pretty much, the three pieces that we want in just about every plan there. We can add other things, vision, dental, and stuff like that, but it's going to be that accident plan, the short-term medical, then the accident, and the critical illness. So that kind of puts it all together. So here's my story was talking about a prior customer, because the person I'm dealing with is starting to balk on the critical illness portion. Okay, they're just not quite seeing the need. So the way that it went was my story was about a customer that called me up, and they wanted. I was a husband and wife. They had the policy, and the wife's calling me saying she wants to cancel her portion of the plan that she and her husband have. And of course, immediately my response is I'm going to tell Mary that I can help you with that. Okay? And so then you always ask, why just your portion of the plan? So Mary tells me that her husband, JR, had a heart attack at 48 years old, but he's okay. And she says the insurance covered everything, just like I said I would. I had the $250 deductible, and then boom, everything was covered there at the hospital, and JR's fine. However, the problem is he's going to be out of work for the next 8 weeks. And she's just trying to save some money. And she looked at that as her portion. If she canceled that, would be the opportunity to save a couple $100 in there. So I asked her to wait a moment, and I said, let me look up your account. And I asked her, would $40,000, help? I'm sending you out a form to fill out. Your critical illness plan will send you a check for $40,000, and that should take care of you. That should arrive here in about the next 2 weeks. So that was kind of my story, right? And there on selling that. Now, a friend of mine had a very similar story that he used, and he used it very successfully. In the way his story worked is that his his wife had breast cancer. And her critical illness plan that they had was actually $100,000. So what they did when she had breast cancer, they reported it. They got the check for $100,000. They both took leave of absence from work. Under that was that the FMLA plan. She got treatment. He was there for support all the way through. It's not like the money was necessary for the treatment because they had a health plan that covered that. But it allowed them to both not work. He was there for support. And after she finished up with her radiation treatment, they went to American Samoa for recovery prior to returning to work. So that was his story. And because it was a personal story, it really boosted his sales. So you can use a combination there. You can either use one that is yours, or you can use one that is an amalgamation of other customers, or you could use one like mine, which was something that had happened to me. Okay? 40,000 was typically my go-to number on critical illness. But whatever yours is, it doesn't matter. It's just that check would have been 10,000 or 20,000, or like in my friend's case, it was 100,000. So you just need to, my character, I had my, the content, the problem that the previous customer had, the conflict was there, and then we solved the problem, and so that resulted in the sale of completing that three-part package, right? So just so that you kind of see how it all comes together there. So now that you kind of have the basics of a good story construction, we need to just build different stories because these are going to be different parts of the battle. And the way you create your stories will depend upon exactly how you plan to incorporate the final story into your sales presentation. You don't just dump the story and run, okay? It's got to be infused into there in a way that supports the overall narrative that you're trying to create. So there's a lot of different ways people do that. It can be a single story that is a thread that runs through the entire presentation, kind of used as a means of maintaining attention. But I'll tell you, that's going to require a pretty high level skill as a storyteller to be able to, to maintain the clarity and the tension through there. Now, consider this more as a narrative device until you've really had a chance to put the story to the test, and kind of see how they land. Okay? So when I'm trying to consider that, that the story needs to be delivered well. So that means, you're going to have to rehearse it. Pay attention to the delivery. Keep in mind that the brain processes visual stuff 60 times faster than it does words. And so when it comes to a sale presentation, story can't be just telling the story. It's got to create that image, okay, so that they'll be able to see that. So whether you're meeting in person or sharing a remote presentation, make sure you have some kind of a effective solution, to forge that connection through some visual cues. Video conferencing can be a very powerful tool here. And if you aren't able to, be in person with your customers, but it still allows you to create that face-to-face experience that drives better storytelling performance. So just some notes here you can share at the beginning of the presentation just to sort of capture their attention. You can put it into the middle, a good story to refocus, where you're trying to take them in the sales process. You can kind of do different stories throughout to support key features and benefits. Or you can just share the story at the end that kind of encourages prospects to put themselves in the shoes of your character. So there's a lot of different ways you can use the stories in there. But one of the things though that I really need to emphasize is you got to practice the story. Think about even the best like stand-up comics, because that's what they're really usually doing is trying to tell a story. They'll spend months or even years. They'll be, testing material, see how it, how the audience reacts to it. And that's because they know that while some stories will create powerful connections, with some listeners, sometimes they can fall flat. So the good news is you immediately know if your stories aren't working, right? If people are engaged, they maintain eye contact, they'll lean forward in their seat, you know, make encouraging noises and give those positive signals. And if they aren't, you'll see the lack of engagement, limited response, shifting their attention with glances, look at their phone, their watch, okay? So you'll kind of know if if the story is going anywhere. Now, bombing if the story doesn't feel great, but it's important learning experience so that you can improve your performance. So just kind of pay attention to which stories work and which ones don't. Then take the story that isn't working and either tweak it, going back to those elements of character and context and conflict, go back to that and or, tweak the elements in there, or just replace it entirely. So this was kind of just a pretty quick presentation. I usually try to keep things down to 15, 20 minutes. I know it's Monday morning and usually it's the beginning of everybody's week. So just trying to give you some ideas on how to put a story in there and not just give the facts. People like the facts, they want the facts, but they're going to buy on the emotion that you can create with the story. So it's with all that's been said, it's still it's going to become a skill, and the skill is going to require practice. And when it comes to influence the feelings of others, in the context of a sales presentation, there's simply no better tool in your arsenal than a good old-fashioned story that you can fit in. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It's I think some good information. There are plenty of books out there and articles on storytelling and how to construct a story, especially in the sales environment. So I just want you to consider trying to, put one in there. You can use mine. You can use my friends that, on critical illness. But I would have them, for all the different parts and pieces of the plans that you're selling, some sort of a story that you can tell how having that solved a problem, okay? Because that's really what we want to do is solve problems. All right. So you guys have a great rest of your week. And if you have any questions or any comments, you can always get a hold of me at training, ahpsales.com. And I'd be glad to, discuss things with you, look at putting things together. And, you can even test your story on me and we can see how it fits the different elements. All right. So good luck and good sales.